بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ذلك ومن يعظم شعائر الله فإنها من تقوى القلوب. Refreshing your gatherings with the remembrance of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. The first of Muharram marks the beginning of a new Islamic year in the Islamic calendar. However, many people ask, why is it that we do not celebrate the beginning of a new year? Just like we see, for example, the Gregorian calendar, people celebrate. The Persian calendar, people celebrate. The Chinese New Year, people celebrate. Why is it that when it comes to Islam, Muslims do not celebrate the New Year, and a big portion of the Muslims begin their year with sorrow, begin their year with grief? Some say this is not a good attitude to begin a new year with. You want to begin a new year? You should begin it on a good footing. You should begin it with happiness. You should begin it with looking towards a brighter future. Why is it that we start off the year wearing black and crying and in sorrow and in grief? This is a legitimate question. However, in order to answer this question, we have to see, why do people celebrate? And what's the purpose of celebrating? I celebrate when I graduate. I celebrate when something good happens in my life. I celebrate when I reach a milestone in my life, when something good happens in my life. This is why people celebrate. Otherwise, just celebrating because the hour, it turned from 11:59 to 12, and you see people going crazy, and they did not meet any of their New Year's resolutions, then what's the point of celebrating? We have to see our actions. Why do we do certain things that we do? You see, sometimes you see people on TV, they're going crazy and they're celebrating and they're so happy. You ask them, why are you celebrating? What did you accomplish? What did you do? Most of them will not have an answer. And likewise, you see many people who are mourning and who are in grief. You ask them why you are doing this, they also will not have an answer. This is why we need to know why we take certain actions in our lives? Why do we do things in our lives? There's nothing wrong with celebrating. In fact, in a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, today is a Eid, and tomorrow is a Eid, and the day after tomorrow is a Eid, because every day that I do not disobey Allah is a day of Eid. That is a legitimate reason to celebrate. In a hadith, in another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, لَيْسَ الْعِيدْ لِمَنْ لَبِسَ الْجَدِيدِ وَإِنَّمَا الْعِيدْ لِمَنْ أَمِنَ الْوَعِيدِ. Eid is not for the one who wears new clothes. Eid is for the one who guarantees the wa'id, the one who guarantees the day and the afterlife. That is the true day to celebrate. However, when we come and we look at the first of Muharram, we see that the first of Muharram reminds us of an event that blackened the pages of the history books. An event that carried out the greatest act of oppression that humanity and this earth has witnessed. And that is the butchering of the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Imam al-Hussein, on the 10th of Muharram in the year 61 after Hijrah. So why should I celebrate? What is there a reason for me to celebrate? When the Muslims, we're not talking about an army that came outside the Muslim land. We're not talking about people who are non-Muslims. We're not talking about aliens that came from Mars. No, we're talking about a group of people who said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, while they were killing Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, while they were butchering the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. What do we have to celebrate? What is there left for us to celebrate? And what's worse is that that act is going on until today. Until today, if you see these videos, these beheadings, which I don't recommend anyone watches, but when you hear about it, when you see it, you see the name of Allah is invoked. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, and then they kill in the name of Allah. So we see that there's no reason for us to celebrate. In fact, when we remember the beginning of the year and the act of what some so-called Muslims committed, it's a reason for us to cry. It's a reason for us to cry and mourn. Because Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he was no grandson of the Prophet that was very far from the Prophet. We're not talking about a 500-year difference between Rasulullah and Imam al-Hussein. We're talking about the child who sat in the lap of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in front of all of the Muslims. All of the Muslims, they saw Rasulullah play with Imam al-Hussein. They saw Rasulullah carry and hold Imam al-Hussein and kiss Imam al-Hussein. They heard Rasulullah say, Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn. Ahabballahu man ahabba Husayna. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. Allah loves the one who loves Hussein. But you see that this is how they paid back Rasulullah. So there's no reason for us to celebrate. In fact, we mourn. And this is what millions of people are doing all over the world today. You see millions of people, they place their lives on hold. They put everything on hold. And they wear the black to mark their sorrow, to mark their sadness, their grief for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Now some people, they come and they ask, why? There's so much murder going on today. There's so much oppression going on today. Why do you hold on to an event, a murder, a crime that took place over 1,300 years ago? Forget about it. There's so many people dying right now. Come and cry for the people that are dying right now. Why would you have to go and cry for Imam al-Hussein alayhi? The answer is the same oppression that took place against Imam al-Hussein is alive until today. So therefore, I continue crying for the same oppression that took place. Today we find so many people that are mourning Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Some people ask why? What's the reason of mourning Imam al-Hussein? What's the reason? 1,000 years have passed by. There are people that their family members, they died a few weeks ago, a few months ago, they buried their family, they read Fatiha for their family, and that's it, they forgot about their family. But Imam al-Hussein, they keep remembering Imam al-Hussein every year. And there are people that ask this question in two categories. One category is out of curiosity, and the other category is out of hatred. They don't want to see you crying for Imam al-Hussein. They don't want to see you beating your chest for Imam al-Hussein. Because when you are beating your chest for Imam al-Hussein, it's as if you are beating their chest. They feel the pain when you are beating your chest for Imam al-Hussein. Why? There are some people that cannot handle, they cannot see it. They cannot see the love for Imam al-Hussein. What are the reasons for the love for Imam al-Hussein? What are the reasons that we gather and commemorate Imam al-Hussein every year? The first is that it's not you and I who's remembering Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The remembrance and the memory of Imam al-Hussein is not just up to me and you that are gathered here. This is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is divine love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled the love for Imam al-Hussein in the hearts of the mu'mineen, in the hearts of the believers. And this is why today you find the Arab, the Persian, the black, the white, all the races. Everyone gathers and they remember Imam al-Hussein, and every single one of those people from those races, they feel like Imam al-Hussein is one of them. They feel like Imam al-Hussein is theirs. Imam al-Hussein, all of the lines of race, the lines of nationality, they're all gone when you remember Imam al-Hussein. This is all divine love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Prophet Musa and the mu'mineen and the believers. Allah says, وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِّنِّي. Allah tells Prophet Musa, when you were a child, I placed the love in the hearts of the people towards you, O Musa, when you were a child. And similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed the love towards Imam al-Hussein in the hearts of the believers. In a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he says, إِنَّ لِقَتْلِ الْحُسَيْنِ حَرَارَةٌ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لَا تَبْرَدُ أَبَدًا. He says, for the murder of Imam al-Hussein, there's a flame in the hearts of the believers that never cools down. Every year after year, we remember Imam al-Hussein. If you're a mu'min, if you're a believer, you will commemorate Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, because Allah has placed that love in your heart. And you see that nothing stops that love. How many tyrants, how many dictators, how many rulers have come and they've tried to stop people from mourning Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Just a few years ago, we saw how Saddam, he stopped people from visiting Imam al-Hussein. And caliph after caliph before him, they would come and they would chop off the hands of the visitors of Imam al-Hussein. They would kill whoever cries for Imam al-Hussein, whoever says a line of poetry for Imam al-Hussein. One of the Abbasi caliphs, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, this man, during his era, he destroyed the grave of Imam al-Hussein 4 times. Just one person. Destroyed the grave of Imam al-Hussein 4 times. You know, one of the names of Karbala, one of the names of the grave of Imam al-Hussein area, it's called Ha'ir al-Furat. Ha'ir. If you've seen in some of the narrations of the Ahl Bayt, they say when you enter the Ha'ir, that's when you begin and you do the dua from Imam al-Sadiq. Why is it called Ha'ir? Ha'ir, it means the confused. Why? Because Karbala and the grave of Imam al-Hussein confused the Furat. Ha'ir al-Furat. Why? Because Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, the same man, he brought farmers and they dug the water of the Furat so that it could drown the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. They came and they wanted to make the grave of Imam al-Hussein go under the water so that no one visits Imam al-Hussein. What happened? The Furat, the same Furat that Imam al-Hussein did not taste a drop of, it started revolving around the grave of Imam al-Hussein. And this is why Karbala and the grave of Imam al-Hussein became known as Ha'ir al-Furat. It confused the Furat. throughout history, tyrants and dictators have stopped and tried to stop people from visiting Imam Hussein. Has that worked? Just a few years ago, 2014, ISIS took over Iraq. A country that half of the country has been taken over by ISIS. How many people showed up for Arba'in? Did that stop people from visiting Imam Hussein? Did that stop people from showing their love to Imam Hussein? If it was any other country in the world that has war, that has terrorism going on, no one would go to it. But because of Imam Hussein, you see people, they go and they feel lucky that they had the opportunity to go and visit Imam Hussein. So this is the first reason. The first reason is that it is divine love that drives us towards Imam Hussein. It doesn't have to do with you and I. The second reason that we visit Imam Hussein and we cry for Imam Hussein is because of the principles that Imam Hussein stood for. It's not just about a person who died and he was killed in a battle that lasted less than 3 hours. It's not just about the person. It's about the values that Imam Hussein stood for. It's about the teachings of Imam Hussein. And we see all cultures. You find they remember Columbus Day, they remember Martin Luther King Day, President's Day. Why do cultures, they have these type of days? Because these are days that remind them of the values that they believe in. So when we gather and we cry for Imam Hussein and we remember Imam Hussein, we're standing for the values of Imam Hussein. Don't we say in the ziyarah, أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر. Because Imam Hussein, if it was not for him, we wouldn't have the prayer that we have today. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have our religion that we have today. Imam Hussein, it was the values that he stood for. And Imam Hussein, because he saved the religion, we are indebted to Imam Hussein. Every time you pray because of Imam Hussein. You have to give thanks to Imam Hussein. This is why we see the Imams of the Ahl al-Bayt, they place the ziyarah for Imam Hussein in almost every single Islamic event. In the month of Ramadan, you visit Imam Hussein. On the day of Arafah, where all of the Hujjaj are in Mecca, in Arafat, performing the Hajj, they have to visit Imam Hussein. Laylatul Qadr, you visit Imam Hussein. In Sha'ban, you visit Imam Hussein. In Rajab, you visit Imam Hussein. Why? Because if it wasn't for Imam Hussein, who would be praying? If it wasn't for Imam Hussein, who would go to Hajj? Imam Hussein, these were his values. And when you remember Imam Hussein, that brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. The one, when you glorify the signs of Allah, that's a sign of piety. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةَ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. Two mountains of rock, Safa and Marwa. إِنَّ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةَ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. They are the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you go to Hajj, you have to go and visit the Safa and the Marwa. Why? Because it was through these mountains that Tawheed was built. In another verse, Allah speaks about the place of Ibrahim, Maqam Ibrahim. Allah says, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Pray, but don't just pray anywhere after the tawaf. Pray where Ibrahim stood and he prayed. Why? Because that is where Tawheed started. That is the essence of Tawheed. Go and pray where Ibrahim prayed. In another verse, Allah speaks about a camel, a small sheep. Allah says, وَالْبُدْنَ جَعَلْنَاهَا لَكُمْ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. You know what else is a sha'a'ir Allah? One of the sha'ira of Allah? It is the camel, the little sheep that you're going to slaughter and sacrifice in the way of Allah. Why? Because that little animal, it brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a sign of piety, where you sacrifice in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah says, وَالْبُدْنَ جَعَلْنَاهَا لَكُمْ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. Even that little camel, it becomes one of the signs of Allah. Now I ask you, for the ones who object, why do we remember Imam al-Hussein? What is more valuable, a little camel or Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam? A little sheep or the Ahl al-Bayt? Who sacrificed more for the religion of Islam? The values that Imam al-Hussein stood for are eternal. One of the values that Imam al-Hussein and principles that he stood for is the concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar. Allah says in the Quran, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrajat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf. If you want to remain the best ummah, the strongest and the most powerful ummah where all of the other nations will respect you as Muslims, you have to be an ummah that practices Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi al Munkar, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. A concept that is very far from our societies today. Who practices it? Whoever practices it, people don't want to talk to this person, they hate this person, and they don't want to be around this person. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he practiced it in a time where no one was willing to do Amr bil Ma'ruf. Everyone remained quiet, even though they knew what kind of a person Yazid was. But Imam al-Hussein, he said, a man like me cannot give legitimacy to a man like Yazid. Yazid, رجل فاسق, شارب الخمر, قاتل النفس المحترمة, مثلي لا يبايع مثله. He says very clearly, Yazid is fasiq, شارب الخمر, he drinks alcohol, قاتل النفس المحترمة, he kills the innocent soul. A man like me cannot give bay'ah to a man like Yazid. And Imam Hussein didn't. He stood for his values. He sacrificed himself and his children for the sake of his values, for the sake of his principles. Something that we see the Muslims are in need of, especially in a time like this. Today, when you see 4 presidents, 4 leaders of the Arab world, they go and they visit and they go and they attend the funeral of a man who was responsible for killing the Palestinians. A man who was responsible for taking out the Palestinians out of their home. They go and they attend his funeral, and then they come and they say, Palestine, Palestine, when are you going to get Palestine back? Go and learn from Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Learn from the Ahlul Bayt. That is when you will be able to have karamah. That is when you will be respected by everyone. And this is not something that I'm saying right now. This is the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi when he appointed Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said, Allahumma wali man walah, wa'adi man adah, wansur man nasarah, wakhdul man khadalah. Whoever turns against Ali ibn Abi Talib, Allah will turn against him. And you see that this person will not have respect and honor. And this is why the state of the Muslims is as it is today. So this is why we go back to Imam al-Hussein, so that we gain our values and our principles through remembering Imam al-Hussein. This is the second reason, for the sake of the principles and values. The third reason, when we remember Imam al-Hussein, we stand against injustice. And by remembering Imam al-Hussein, we are crying for injustice. When you remember Imam al-Hussein, you are not representing one mazloom. You're not crying for one person who is oppressed. In fact, when you remember Imam Hussein, you are crying for everyone who has been oppressed. Because there has been no one that has been oppressed like the way Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was oppressed. So when we remember Imam Hussein, we are taking a side in a world of justice and injustice, in a world of oppression and tyranny, oppressing the unjust, oppressing the weak. When we remember Imam Hussein, we are taking a side. Because when you see dhulm, when you see oppression, you cannot say, I just watch and I don't take a side. There were people on the day of Ashura that said that we're just going to watch. You know, most of the people that participated in the murder of Abu Abdullah, they were just watching. This is why the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, the Imam, he says, Allahumma al'an, oh Allah, curse the ones who had their faces covered. تَنَقَّبَتْ لِقَتْلِكَ تَهَيَّأَتْ وَتَنَقَّبَتْ لِقَتْلِكَ. There are some people that were just gathered, they were just watching. When we remember Imam Hussein, we cannot take sides. We stand with the mazloom, we stand with the oppressed, and this is what the Ahlul Bayt teach us. لِأَكُونَ مَظْلُومًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ أَكُونَ ظَالِمًا. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I would rather be oppressed rather than be an oppressor. Because Imam al-Hussein was oppressed, Yazid was the oppressor. Who's alive today? Who is remembered today? And then when we cry for Imam al-Hussein, is through Imam al-Hussein, he is our channel of showing that we have been oppressed. And this is what all of the Imams did. You see, for example, Imam al-Hasan, while he was on his deathbed, while he was dying, while he was poisoned, and the poison was seeping through his body, Imam al-Hussein was next to him. This was 10 years before Ashura. Imam al-Hussein began to weep. He began to cry when he saw his older brother, Imam al-Hasan, in that state. Then Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, he tells him, Ya Aba Abdullah, la yawmaka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. If you want to cry for something, cry for yourself. Because there is no day as severe as your day, O Aba Abdullah. This is why we see the Imams, even when they were suffering, even when they were in pain, they would remember Imam al-Hussein, because that is our channel of showing that we have been oppressed. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, it is narrated one day there was a fire in the house of Imam al-Sadiq. There was a fire. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he came out of the house and then he sat in the dihliz, in the aisle between the rooms. He sat and he began to cry. So some of his companions, they told him, Ya Aba Abdullah, why are you crying? If you lost your belongings, we will help you, we will replace it all for you. He says, no, that's not why I'm crying. When I saw my women and children running out of the room, afraid of the fire, I remembered Zainab and the children of Imam Hussein. And this is why I cried. We see that always the Imams, they would remember Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Because through Imam al-Hussein we are able to show our oppression. Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, he tells one of his companions, he tells him, Yabna Shabib, in kunta bakiyan li shay'in, fabki li jaddi al-Hussein. O son of Shabib, if you want to cry for something, cry for my grandfather, Aba Abdullah. Because no one has been oppressed the way Imam al-Hussein was oppressed. This is why you should cry. So this is the third reason. The fourth reason, my dear brothers and sisters, we cry for Imam al-Hussein because we are humans. Our humanity drives us to cry for Imam al-Hussein and commemorate and remember Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. When you hear about a person who was killed, they did not give him one drop of water to drink. Where on the day of Ashura, they knew he was going to die. He tells them, give me one drop of water. They refused. He brings his 6-month-old child. He tells them, oh people, if you have a problem with me, you don't want to give me water, you don't have to give me water. But this young child, إن كان لي ذنب فما ذنب هذا الرضيع. If I have committed a crime, if I have done something against you, what's the crime of the 6-month-old child? The hadith says, كان يتلظى عطشا. The son of Imam al-Hussein was dying out of thirst. That means that even if they were to give him water, he would have died. But they refused. So it's our humanity that drives us to cry for Imam al-Hussein. That drives us to come for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. If you're a human and you hear what happened to Imam al-Hussein, you will be moved. Because even the skies and the earth cried for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Even the skies and the earth, and this is not what I'm saying. This is narrated in the books of the Muslims, Sunni and Shia. They narrate that the skies wept blood for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, he passed by Siffin before Ashura. He passed by the land of Siffin, and as he was going to Siffin, either on his way or after, he passed by Karbala and he began to weep. And then he read this verse, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنظَرِينَ. Allah speaks about the kuffar. Allah says that the skies and the earth shall not cry for the kuffar. فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنظَرِينَ. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen says, وَلَكِنْ تَبْكِي عَلَىٰ أَبُو عَبْدِ اللَّهِ الْحُسَيْنِ. However, the skies and the earth shall cry for my son Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. And then Ibn Hajar and other Sunni scholars, they say that for days, 40 days in some narrations, and longer in other narrations, the skies wept blood for Imam al-Husayn, and there was a redness that was seen in the skies. Even in Bayt al-Maqdis, where a rock was lifted, they would see blood under it for Imam al-Husayn. And this is no surprise for us. Allah says in the Quran, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنظَرِينَ. When you hear what happened to Imam al-Husayn, you cry for Imam al-Husayn. Any heart will cry for Imam al-Husayn, because even the rocks cried for Imam al-Husayn. This is the fourth reason. And the fifth reason that we cry and remember and gather in these majalis is because this is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wasn't it Rasulullah who cried for Imam al-Husayn? Wasn't it Rasulullah in numerous traditions? He remembered Imam al-Husayn and he wept for Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. On the day Imam al-Husayn was born. This is a hadith that is narrated by Ahmad ibn Hanbal and many of the Sunni scholars. They say the day Imam al-Husayn was born, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi began to cry. The only child where even on the day that he was born, usually when a child is born, their parents are happy, everyone's smiling, everyone is laughing. But the day Imam al-Husayn was born was a day where Rasulullah cried, Fatima al-Zahra cried, Amir al-Mu'mineen cried for Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. In another hadith, Salama, she says, one day I was with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Rasulullah told me, I'm going into the room, I want to rest. Don't allow anyone to come in the room. So she says, I sat by the door, guarding the door, so that no one would enter in on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She says, suddenly the young toddler, the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old Imam al-Husayn, he ran past me and he went and he sat on the chest of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She says, so I got up, I ran after him, I came, I tried to take him. Rasulullah told me, oh Salama, I did not mean Hussein. I don't want the strangers to come. Husaynun minni wa ana min Hussein. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. She says, I left Rasulullah with Hussein and Rasulullah was playing with him. Then a while later I came to check up on Rasulullah. I saw Rasulullah crying. I came and I told him, oh Rasulullah, why are you crying? He tells me, oh Salama, Jibreel just came and told me that my son Hussein will be killed by my ummah, by a group of people that claim to be Muslims, and they will expect my shafa'ah on the day of judgment. La analahum Allah shafa'ati. I ask Allah not to give them, and I will not give them my intercession on the day of judgment. This is another tradition. And another one, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he passes by the house of Fatima al-Zahra and he hears Imam al-Husayn crying. He comes and he tells her, oh Fatima, Husayn is crying, I cannot handle Husayn crying. She tells him, Ya Rasulullah, innahu tifl, وَالطِّفْلُ يَبْكِي. He's a child and children cry. He tells her, oh Fatima, أَلَمْ تَعْلَمِي أَنَّ بُكَاؤُهُ يُؤْذِينِي. Don't you know that the crying of Hussein breaks my heart? I cannot tolerate hearing Hussein cry. This was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Amir al-Mu'mineen cried. Imam al-Hasan, all of the Imams, they cried. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he used to cry every time they bring food or water to him. He would cry when he sees the food in front of him. They tell him, why? When is it that you're going to stop crying? Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he replies, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, he lost his son Yusuf for 40 years, and Prophet Yaqub was a prophet. He knew that Yusuf was alive, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran how he cried until he went blind. فَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. He cried until he lost his eyesight. And you expect me not to cry when I saw my father and 18 members of the Ahlul Bayt that were butchered one after the other. All of the Imams cried. Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam, he gathers his companions. He sees Da'bil al-Khuza'i, one of the poets of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. He sees Da'bil, he tells him, Ya Da'bil, anshidni shi'ran fi jaddi al-Husayn. Oh Da'bil, recite to me the poetry that you recited about my grandfather Hussein. Da'bil al-Khuza'i, he wants to begin. Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam, he tells him, wait, oh Da'bil. Imam Al-Rida, he goes and he brings the women and the children and he places a partition, and then he tells him, oh Da'bil, I want you to recite the poem just like you recited over the grave of Abu Abdullah. So Da'bil began to recite, Afatim, Afatim, law khilti al-Husayn mujaddalan, وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي، إذا لطمت الخد فاطم عنده، وأجريت دمع العين بالوجنات. He begins by giving condolences to Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam, the mother of the shaheed. He says, oh Fatima, if you were to see Abu Abdullah on the land of Karbala, you would have slapped your face when you see what happened to your son. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم، يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم، يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك مجيب الدعوات، إنك غافر الخطيئات، إنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آل محمد.
السلام عليكم.